Welcome to Wave Wasters. I'm Matt, and today I'm going to be shaping this 5.0 Mini Sims. It's based off another one that I've been surfing a lot lately, which is a 6.0 by 23 3/4 wide. This one has a little bit of a flatter rocker. I'm hoping going with the 5.0 and the flatter rocker, it'll surf similar sized waves, which is pretty tiny. I'm also going to do a quad concave in this and probably channels out the nose and the tail with hard rails all along the bottom. I want this to be a little more aggressive in how I can surf it. I want to be able to surf this from the nose for when I do shovits and stuff. I don't want it to be too sluggish. So that's why I'm going to try channels in the nose and see how it goes. I'm hoping it'll give it a little more drive. Probably put twin fin in, but I'm probably going to end up surfing this finless most of the time. And making it 5.0 and 22 instead of 6.0 and 23 3/4, it should allow me to throw it around a lot more, which would actually be really nice because it would open up a lot of doors for trying different things. So this is a blank that I actually made, so I don't need to carve into the rocker or anything. I just really need to trace on my template and then cut it out and then square it up and then just clean up the blank a little bit. Just from when I hot wire them out, sometimes they get these little ridges, and just this blank's been in storage for over a year, so it's got a few dings I'll probably try to clean up, like this one here, but a lot of it's probably going to be hidden in the quad concave. So I guess the first thing to do is trace on this paper template I made. I like to do paper templates out of board CAD. It makes it really easy to do one-off boards. They're really easy to store. They don't take up much space. So that's just one advantage to going with the paper, is you can just roll it up and you're good to store it. You could also thumbtack it on, which makes it really easy to just line it up with the center, and you don't really have to worry too much about it. And then I'm just going to grab a marker. I like to use markers for drawing template on. It's all going to be cut off and sanded off anyways. It just makes it nice and easy and gives me a good idea of where I can cut out and where I can't. So the first thing I'm going to do is just trace this side on. And now that I have that side drawn on, I'm just going to undo my template. And I'm going to flip it over and do the other side. Now this one's a little bit longer because I was originally going to do a 5.2. But then I decided to go with 5.0 just to make it a little smaller. So it actually hangs off the edge just a hair. One thing with the paper is you really want to make sure you get it lined up with the center of your blank, just so that you don't warp it too much, because where it is paper, it does sometimes bend out of shape a little bit. Okay, and then trace this side on. The nice thing with using the markers and the paper is you can kind of overlap a little bit, and it'll give you a really accurate line to follow when you're cutting out your blank. When you're doing a lot of one-off boards, like, you don't really need to do like a wood template unless you're going to copy the same board a bunch. Where I'm just doing a lot of boards for myself and the odd friend, it's a lot easier just to use the paper. Okay. Drop that marker back there, pull off the template. Just gonna roll this up. I usually just put these in a box, all folded up, and it makes it really easy to pull them out. I'm just gonna take a quick look at this and see if there's anything I want to change, but it's looking pretty good. I think it's probably good to go. This also has a lot more cut in the sides than my other boards, so it'll be interesting to see if I can whip it around a little more, especially where it's 5/0. Now that I have this all drawn, I'm going to cut it out with a handsaw, making sure I'm as vertical as possible with the saw so that it makes it a little easier to clean up when I take the Surform to it. Okay, now that I have my blank all cut out, first thing I'll do is I'm going to clean up the edge and I'm going to square it off to this as close as I can. And then I'll clean up the bottom and the top and make everything like as flush as possible. Because I'm going to be making a lot of fine dust, I'm going to put on a mask. And to square up everything, I'm just going to use this small square and Surform. So let's get started. Okay, now that I have everything squared up, I'm going to take just a quick overall look at the shape and just see if there's any outline tweaks I want to make before I go ahead and start carving the rest out. This blank is pretty thick. I believe it's 3 inches. Can't remember, it's been a while since I made it, but no, 2 and 3, a little under 2 3/4. So it's fairly thick. It's got a nice like run off the tail, so one thing I'm thinking of doing is actually putting a slight single concave all the way through. That's more for one, I like to flip my board upside down and surf it upside down every now and then. It's sometimes fun to do when the waves are really steep. It kind of slows you down a bit. So I'm thinking I might run a single concave all the way through for doing stuff like that. It might also allow shovits and things to give your foot just a little bit something more to grab on. But we'll see as I continue shaping how I want to proceed with that. But I'm just going to pull this off the shaping rack and just slide it up against the wall and take a just quick peek to see if it's kind of the way I want. It's a little more like fat in the bottom half than I was thinking, but I think it could work pretty good. Actually, I think I am gonna pull the line in just a hair. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pull out my template and I'm gonna use the tail and just pull it in a little bit. It just seems a little too wide down in the back half, which that might help with surfing backwards, but I still want to be able to throw my weight around and throw the tail on this a little bit. So the 2 inches I chopped off at the beginning, I'm just going to line right back up and just chop it off, which isn't going to be actually too much, but it should give me the little bit I'm looking for. So I'm going to drop this back on, thumbtack it to the stringer, which is actually just a glued epoxy. This is something I find I do quite often, is I'll get to a certain point and I'm like, oh, it's looking really good, and then I'm just like, no, I need to tweak it. It's just part of shaping. There's no right way to do it, wrong way. As long as you're out having fun on your board, it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna just redraw this on and just see how I like it. Outside of marker 6. Ah, there we go. Okay, I got one side. I'll flip it over. And we'll see how that looks. Get this good and lined up. Make sure we got it good and flat. Drop it on. Drop this one on, and probably right there. Grab our marker. The other end. There we go. And just gonna trace the rest on. So this will drop my tail probably about an inch in back. So I'm just gonna take another peek and see if this is any better than what I had before I cut it out. So yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna go with. The 14-inch tail. It's just that little bit rounder. I don't want it too boxy, even though this will be really easy to throw around. Going with the 15-inch is probably going to be a little too wide of a turning radius. By no means an expert at shaping. I kind of just make what I want and see if it works and then tweak on next board. But it's always better to take a little bit less foam and be a little less aggressive, because you can always take more off and you can't add it very easy. I really like to get my blank as square as possible. It just makes it a little easier later on. You don't have to quite keep as close an eye on your measurements, but it's always good to keep it as close as you can and measure when you can. But I like to do a lot of things just by eye. But if you get your blank nice and square and flat, it makes it a lot easier. So I'm just gonna continue cleaning up the rest of these edges, and then we'll start marking off where I'm going to do stuff. I've kind of roughed out a little bit of what I'm kind of thinking to do on the bottom of this. I know it's going to be like at least quad concave. But what I'm thinking is I'm going to do quad concave in the inside 14 inches, and then on the outside, on these little strips on the edge here, I'll probably put a slight concave in. And then I'm going to do a couple channels out the back, and I'm going to do some channels like 3 inches and then probably a foot long in the nose, and I'm hoping that'll give the nose just that little bit extra drive when you're surfing off it. So what I think I'm going to do first is I'm going to go right down the stringer, and I'm just going to cut about a 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch into the board, and then I'm just going to slope everything into it. And then I'll mark out where I want my concave like channels to go. And that way they're already like inside like a single concave. So it's kind of like quad concave in a single concave. And then for the edges, I want to keep them pretty sharp so then water just slices off it. And hopefully that'll give me a little bit more control when I'm going finless. And then for the fins, I'm going to go probably about 4 to 5 inches up from the tail. And I'm just going to put 2 twin fins in that I can play around with. And yeah, that's probably it. So I'm just going to cut that first channel, slope everything in, and then we'll mark out the next section and we'll get started on that. Okay, you can see kind of where I've got things laid out a little bit. My fins are going to go right about here. So I'll have 2 fin boxes. I'm probably not going to tow them in. I really have been liking just going with perfectly parallel fins. But we'll see what I decide as I get a little farther in. But you can see where I'm going to put my quad concave. So right in the middle here, this is all going to be dug out. So it's going to be like dug out here, 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 and here. And then the 2 edges, I'm thinking I'm going to do the same thing, just very lightly though. Because I still want it to be able to like slide a little bit. But I really want to have a lot of drive. So if I do take off the fins, which as most people that I surf with know I will definitely do. And then what I'm going to do is I'm thinking I'm going to put channels in the nose, maybe 2 inches up, and then they'll be about a foot long. And I'm hoping that'll give a little bit of grip when I surf on the nose when I'm doing shovits and stuff. So hopefully I'll be able to surf this board both ways, no problem. So I can see I've got a little bit of a spot that's not perfect in this, but where my lines are, it's actually pretty even all the way across. So I should be good on that. I'll just hollow it out and go from there. And then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the edges fairly hard, and I'm going to probably scoop out the deck a fair bit. So I'll probably concave it all the way to about a foot from the nose, maybe 6 inches from the nose. And that might give me something I can actually flip the board. Maybe I'll be able to try some kick flips or something on it. Hopefully it'll give me a little more push, but for like a little more grip for doing shovits and stuff. But who knows, I may just like downturn it to keep the rails a little bit thinner where they are so bulky. So yeah, what I'll probably do, if I do scoop it out, I'll leave a little bit so I can like carve it down. But that's removing a lot of foam, so we'll see about that. But the edges of the rails, I'm thinking I'm gonna leave pretty harsh. I may not actually even round them at all. I might just like clean it up, maybe round it a tiny little bit, but they're probably gonna stay fairly sharp. And where I do, if I am gonna round them, it's gonna be probably like the middle, leaving the back 1.5 and front 1.5 fairly sharp, just so that I have some grip in the wave. And then the sides will probably be probably about 1/2 inch, or I might round it all the way up. But if I leave a 1/2 inch flat, that'll give me lots to lock in with. But I may not do that. We'll see as I go what I'm feeling, and we'll go from there. Yeah, I guess the next thing I need to do is hollow out these sections. So let's get doing that. Alright, now that I have the single concave and then the riffles in that shaped in, I'm just gonna figure out roughly where I want my fins. I know I want them like in this region here, so I'm gonna just use a fin box to kind of figure out where I place them before I clean the rest up and add in the channels. All I'm gonna do is take a fin box, my pencil, and a tape measure, and I'm just gonna mark roughly where I want the back of the fin to go. I'm gonna just mark 5 inches, and then I'm gonna do the same on the other side. And it just kind of gives me a rough idea. Then I'm gonna place my fin box just where I want it, and I'm gonna go right in line with these kind of almost channel-like ridges. So I'm gonna go by the very back, not the very tip of the fin box, but the very edge of the flange. So it'll be a little bit like 5 1/4 inch to 5 1/2 inches into the board. And on a board this size, I kind of want to have them closer to the back. And I think that's going to give me like a pretty good turning radius. Yeah, even just looking at it there, it's looking pretty good. I might actually shift ahead. Yeah, I might move it ahead a little bit. 6 inches might be a little much. But then it's kind of, my back foot gives me a bit of a pivoting point. 5. Yeah, I'm gonna move it to 6. Yeah, 6 inches. I'm gonna go 6 inches up on the tail actually for these. So I'm gonna just mark it just very lightly. I don't want it to like stand out at all. This is more just so I know where I'm gonna place my channels. I'm probably gonna just sand this off anyways. Or, well, I'll definitely airbrush over it. So I'm not too worried. And I'm just going to drop my fin box on top, line it up the end, just so I know where it's roughly going to go. Again, this is all just kind of winging it a little bit. I like to shape what I have like thought of in the water, just different things. And then just as I shape it into the board, I'll like tweak things out to how it kind of looks and how it's feeling. So for the channels, I'm probably going to go just slightly off the back of this. Off the back of this fin, I might put a little like 4-inch channel in the back here, and then I'll run a deeper channel like on these two. And I was gonna say I might put one in the middle of this, but I think I might just go with the 4 channels, but 2 main ones, and then in the front I'm gonna do 4 channels. And then for the rails now, I'm thinking I might round over the middle. So this kind of like middle 2 feet here, I'm thinking I might give a slight round over. And then I'll leave the nose sharp, and I'm going to leave the tail sharp. Because when you're doing turns, you're not really using way up on the nose. And even if it like catches a little bit, this board's so thick, I think it should be able to just plow through it. But it's most of when you're going to turn on this board, you're going to be going off like the back portion of it. So yeah, I'm going to just rough in those channels. I'm going to go about 5 inches in, and then I'm going to just channel it down about 1/4 inch and just make it flat. And that'll hopefully, like, as the water's going out, give it a little more like release off the tail. And then in the middle, I'm probably going to go up almost a foot and just channel it out. And hopefully that'll give me enough drive when I'm going finless. And then the nose, I'll do the same thing right off the nose, but I'm going to start like right about here, like almost right in the curve. And then about a foot up, we'll try to channel it down a little bit, just to give a little bit of an edge there. And hopefully that doesn't affect turning too much. But hopefully it'll allow me to turn and have more drive off the nose. So I've got it pinched in a little more than I was originally going to do. I was going to give it a bit more round of a nose, which I still may do. But for now, I think the pinched in nose will give it just a little bit more grip in the wave. Before I put those channels in, I'm just going to give this another quick cleanup just to make sure I've got it fairly consistent, which it already is. But like when you look, you can see there's just a little bit of a high and low area. This line isn't super straight, so I'm going to try to straighten it up a little bit. But honestly, it's probably as good as I need it to be. This is kind of more of an experimental shape, so it doesn't need to be super precise. So I'm going to clean those up and put the channels in, and then I'll flip it over and I'm going to do the top. done, you can kind of see I've got 2 short ones on the side and then 2 longer ones in the middle. And then in the nose, I've actually got 4 more. I got 2 short ones, which you can kind of see, and then 2 long ones. So it's a little bit more like a tail, and I'm hoping when I do shovits and stuff like that, I'll be able to like surf the nose a bit more. Even though this board has a really flat rocker, I'm hoping it'll allow it to kind of be a little bit more maneuverable in the back. Or I'm hoping it'll be a little more aggressive when I'm surfing the nose. And this is eventually going to turn into a board where I have the nose and the tail are going to be the exact same. And I'm actually really liking the look of this nose. And I'm thinking it might work well if the tail was the exact same. And almost a very similar like nose in the tail or tail in the nose kind of thing. It'll be interesting to see how it actually surfs. Especially with the square tail, I've been surfing more of a bat tail, which is actually really fun because it allows you to kind of whip around really quick. Whereas the square, I'm not sure it's going to let you do as much. But yeah, this is starting to look pretty close to what I was thinking. It's a little more aggressive channels than I thought, but I mean, sometimes it's just the lighting looks way more aggressive than it is. So next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to start carving out the top. I think what I'm going to do is put a little bit of a single concave from about like a foot from the nose and carry it straight through to the tail. It's going to take a little bit of the volume away, but it might give my foot a little more like grip. And it'll allow when I surf it upside down, it should go a little bit better. But yeah, I'm going to just put a nice slight, single concave in the middle, and then I'm just going to downturn the rails quite a bit and try to get them a little thinner so that I can like really put this on edge. And like for the rails, I'm going to leave them pretty hard on the bottom. Probably go like 1.5 to 2 feet in the middle, and I'll round them a little bit on the bottom. But for the most part, it's just going to stay pretty sharp. So I'm just going to grab my pencil again. And I like these adjustable squares, because what I can do is I can just figure out like where I want my single concave to be, like how far in I want it to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure like about a foot, probably a little more. We'll go like 14. So we're going to want 7 on each. So I'm just going to make this, whip this down to 7, which I could use the markings, but they're pretty much gone on this. So yeah, 7 inches. The great thing about these is they sometimes have these like little notches, and your pencil can just sit in it. So what I'll do is I'll go to like roughly where I want my concave to be, I'll put it on the rail, and I'll just like lightly drag. And that's kind of where I'm going to want it to be, the flat point. I'll just go to about the same spot, drag it over, and really get a good line there. Make sure you get this line really good. And then I'm going to do one more, and I'm going to go probably about half. Where's my 7-inch mark? 7-inch. Sweet. 7-inch, I'm just going to make a mark. And I'll set this guy right where it is. Lock it on. So this is as far out as I'm going to go. So I'm kind of doing like reverse rail bands a little bit. So you can see these two lines. This middle one, first thing I'm going to do is take a strip down. And I'll take another strip a little bit shallower. And then I'm just going to blend it all. And then what I'll do is I'll take my rails down from here, and it'll probably go fairly aggressive. So we're going to go back to the shear form, and I'm just going to grab my tape measure before I do that. And I'm just going to make a mark just beside the stringer of where I kind of want it to stop. And I'm going to go about 13 inches in. And I'm just going to make a little mark, and I'm going to make a mark on 12 so I don't go past that, because this mark at 13 inches will probably be gone. And then I'm going to go probably to right about there, and I'll just scoop it out a little bit. So here we go. Okay, you can kind of see I've got it like dished a little bit. It's pretty close to like how I want. So I don't think I'll mess with it too much because it is not a huge thing, but it's just going to give a little bit a spot so I can feel where my foot is. And now I'm just going to do my rail bands. So first one, I'll probably go to this line here. And I'll probably go down like a 1/4 inch until I get close to the nose and tail. And then I'll probably go a little bit less, and then I'll go a little more on the next one, a little more. And I'm going to turn it down a fair bit to that edge. I may have to come in a little, but I shouldn't have to come in too much. So what I like to do for my rails is I like to use my square again. And I'll use a pencil and I'll just roughly mark where I want to go to. So I've already got this set up for that line. So I'll bring this to the nose and then I'll just drag along just to get my mark of where I want it to go. And now for this in the tail, I'm not going to go as far, so I'm just going to stop once I get to where I've sanded. I'll do the same to the other side. So you can see where I'm going to turn it all down. And then on this, we'll probably go to like, probably close to the same. But for now, I'm just going to mark it all the way. I'll smooth out this line later. It just makes sense to kind of go all the way down. And then once I have that, I also will just take my square and I'll figure out how far down I want to go. So if I want to go about a 1/4 inch, which I might go a little more 1/4 inch, I'll set it and then I'll use this as kind of my guide. And I'll just hold the pencil and this will let me get pretty close. And I'll just go roughly up to the nose. And I'll just double check to make sure I've got an indent or a line that's the right amount. And sometimes it takes more, I'm on the pass. But that's close. Again, I'm doing a Again, I'm doing a lot of this just by eye, so I'm not super worried if I'm a little thicker on one side than the other. What also works good is if you use a marker, because you can get a really nice light line of where you want it to go. So I'm just going to do just going to do my first rail band, and then after that I'll slowly taper it down. But I want fairly harsh rails where it is such a thick board, and I want to keep a lot of volume. And I'm going to keep the bottom, I'm not turning the rail up at all, so it's going to be sharp, so I have to make sure I go back far enough on the top and sink it down. But if I don't like how it's looking, I can always bring the rail back easier than I can like bring it up. So I'm going to start fairly aggressive, and then I have to work my way out. Shaped and ready for fin boxes. So what I've done, so the final shape, I've got a single concave, but then I have this quintuple concave, I guess. 6 like little concaves in it. It's almost like a Ruffles chip. But yeah, I got the single concave with the ruffles in it, and then I have the 2 mini channels in the tail. And then I have 2 main channels also in the tail. And that's just going to help project the water outwards. When the water comes in, it should compress a little bit. And then as you hit these channels, it's going to be able to expand and accelerate out the back. I've also got channels in the nose. I have 2 longer ones on the side here. And then I have 2, again, main channels. And I'm hoping this is going to allow the board to be surfed off the nose. So I'll hopefully be able to do shovits, surf normal, and then do a shove it again and be back on the tail. Like, that's the theory, but whether it works or not, I'll have to wait and see. I then have hard edges from the tail to almost 2 feet up. And then in halfway, I rounded it just a tiny little bit, just so it's not so sharp. And hopefully that'll help the edge from getting caught in the wave too much. And then when you go back towards the nose, it sharpens up again. And then if you flip it over, I've got the rails. They're fairly harsh, like it's a fairly harsh downturn. And I've got this little bit of a concave that'll hopefully just like help the board stick to my chest a little bit and give my feet a little something to like push off while keeping the volume fairly high. It just pushes it out to the rails. But where I've got them downturned fairly sharp, it's keeping it like thinner on the rail but also thick. And then it goes with the concave and it flattens out in the tail and the nose. So it should give me a little bit of like being able to surf off both. So yeah, I think I'm just going to downturn this tail a little bit and then it'll be good to airbrush and put fins in. So I'm not even going to wear a mask, this will be pretty quick. If I can find my... Oh, there it is. And there it is. I just downturned it a little bit, so that'll hopefully help cut through the water. And there's the final shape. So you can kind of see it all. So the last thing I'm going to do, because I'm going to make it a twin fin, I'm going to put the fin box actually right, you can see right at the end of the channel is where it's going to start. And it's going to go there, so it's going to go about 6 inches up from the tail. And that should keep it fairly loose. But most of the time, this is probably going to be a road finless, realistically. But who knows? It may take me back to fins. But yeah, the next step, I'm going to airbrush it. And yeah, that'll be it. Ready for fiberglass after that. So yeah. Got another board I'm going to start shaping tomorrow. And do another video on that one. But this one is going to be another high performance Mini Simmons surf skate thing. And yeah, I'm hopefully gonna airbrush a pretty sweet graphic on it. If it doesn't turn out, it'll be a huge bummer and it'll be a solid color forward. But that is the plan. So the next step is to draw it out, start airbrushing. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more videos on this board and another board I'm gonna be building.